Inflation shattered the system, so they replaced it with gold. Imagine waking up tomorrow, your savings account still full. Every number exactly where you left it, but when you walk into a store, that money buys half of what it did just 12 months ago. No warning, no announcement, no explanation from your government. This didn't happen in a movie. This happened to an entire nation, and what those people did next, quietly, strategically, without asking permission, shifted over $600 billion completely outside the banking system. Not into stocks, not into crypto, not into anything a government could touch. The old system didn't just crack, it shattered, and what replaced it has been sitting in human hands for over 5,000 years. Stay with us, because what happens next changes everything you thought you knew about money. Welcome to Finance Focus, where we don't just follow the money, we trace exactly where it runs when the system stops working. Now, before we go any further, let me ask you something, and I want you to think about this the way a wise person would, the kind who has seen a few things in life. If your bank quietly told you tomorrow that your savings lost 40% of their value, would you know exactly what to do? Most people wouldn't. That's precisely why this channel exists. If you've been with us before, you already know the value of what we do here. But if this is your first time joining us, do us a small favor. Hit that subscribe button. Think of it like setting a reminder on your calendar for something genuinely important. The kind of reminder a person over 50 sets, not because someone told them to, but because they've learned that real knowledge is worth holding on to. And one more thing, we're genuinely curious about our community here at Finance Focus. Drop a comment below and tell us, where in the world are you watching from today? Whether you're in London, Lahore, Lagos, or Los Angeles, we want to know who's in the room with us tonight. Now, let's get into what may be the most important economic case study of our generation. Because what Turkey did isn't just a story about one country, it's a warning. And it has your name on it. Somewhere in Istanbul, a retired school teacher named Mariam sat at her kitchen table in the early hours of the morning. In front of her lay a single bank statement. She had worked for 37 years. She had saved carefully, lived modestly, and trusted the system completely. The numbers on that statement had not changed, but everything those numbers could buy had. A year earlier, that same amount covered her monthly groceries, her electricity bill, her grandchildren's school supplies, and still left something behind. Now, it barely covered the groceries. The money was still there, but its power was quietly dying. This is not a story about one woman. This is a story about what happens when an entire nation watches its financial foundation crack beneath its feet. Slowly at first, then all at once. Turkey's inflation crisis did not arrive overnight. It built over decades. Poor monetary policy, political pressure on central banks, excessive money printing, and a currency kept artificially weak for the benefit of exports. All of it compounded quietly, year after year, like a debt that never got paid. By the time inflation reached its peak in recent years, the Turkish lira had lost an extraordinary portion of its value. Citizens who had held their savings in lira watched their purchasing power shrink in real time. Not in theory, not in economic textbooks, in their daily lives, at grocery stores, at pharmacies, at petrol stations. The government responded the way governments typically do. They raised interest rates, they made public announcements, they promised stability. But there is a critical point where standard monetary tools stop producing standard results, and Turkey had already crossed that line. Here is the hard reality that most people never fully understand. If a bank offers a citizen a 35% annual return on their savings, that sounds generous. It sounds like protection. But if the real inflation rate is running at 40%, that citizen is not gaining 35%. They are losing 5% every single year, silently, legally, with a smile from their bank manager. That is not savings. That is a slow financial disappearance. And ordinary Turkish citizens began to understand this, not through economic lectures or financial advisors, but through lived experience. They felt it when they went to buy bread. They felt it when their children needed new shoes. They felt it when the rent went up, but the salary did not. The data was right there in their own lives. Trust, once lost at this level, does not return easily. And what Turkey experienced was not simply a loss of confidence in one policy or one government. It was a generational breakdown of faith in the entire institutional framework of money itself. When people stop trusting the currency their government issues, they do not simply complain and move on. History shows repeatedly and without exception that they begin searching for something else, something that cannot be printed, something that cannot be devalued by a committee meeting at a central bank, something that has held its worth not for decades, but for thousands of years. This behavioral shift does not happen loudly. There are no public protests specifically about currency. There are no official announcements. It happens quietly, in homes, in family conversations, decisions made at kitchen tables by people like Mariam, who simply stop believing that the paper in their hands will protect them tomorrow. Zimbabwe had shown the world what the extreme end of this collapse looks like. A $5 bill that once held real value became worthless as the government printed money without restraint. Then came the hundreds of millions denomination notes, worth less than the earlier $5 bill had been. Turkey was not at that extreme, but the direction was familiar, and the people recognized it. What made Turkey's situation particularly significant was not just the scale of inflation. It was the speed at which ordinary citizens adapted. They did not wait for government solutions. They did not wait for international rescue packages. They made a collective decision, household by household, that the formal financial system could no longer be trusted as the guardian of their life savings. And so they began to move, quietly, strategically, with a kind of calm determination that only comes from people who have genuinely run out of faith in the alternative. They turned to gold, not as a trend, not as speculation, but as an act of financial survival. The oldest and most rational response human beings have ever had to a system that stopped working. There's a moment in every financial crisis where people stop reacting and start deciding. Turkey crossed that moment quietly, and what followed was not panic, it was precision. Across the country, from the crowded bazaars of Istanbul to the quieter streets of Ankara, from coastal cities to rural towns tucked between mountains, ordinary people began making the same decision independently of each other. Not because a financial advisor told them to, not because a government campaign encouraged it, but because generations of economic instability had already written the lesson into their family memory. They chose gold, not as an investment strategy discussed in boardrooms, not as a portfolio allocation debated in wealth management offices, but as a fundamental act of economic self-preservation, the kind that gets passed down from grandmothers to grandchildren in the form of a single piece of advice. When everything else fails, hold gold. What followed became one of the most remarkable financial migrations in modern economic history. Turkish households and businesses began accumulating physical gold at a scale that stunned even seasoned economists when the numbers finally became clear. Estimates from central bank data and independent economic analysis placed total private gold holdings in Turkey at approximately $750 billion. To understand the true weight of that number, consider this. That single figure represents nearly half of Turkey's entire national economy. Not half of its savings, not half of its investments, half of its entire GDP equivalent, sitting in physical gold, held privately by its own citizens. But here is where the story becomes truly extraordinary. Of that $750 billion, only around $80 billion sits in official bank deposits. Another $80 billion is held within central bank reserves. That accounts for roughly $160 billion within the formal financial system. The remaining $600 billion, the vast majority, exists completely outside of it. No bank ledger records it, no government database tracks it, no monetary policy can directly reach it. Economists and analysts gave this phenomenon a name that captured its quiet, domestic nature perfectly. They called it the under-the-pillow economy. Physical gold coins, small bars, and traditional jewelry stored inside homes, tucked beneath floorboards, locked inside personal safes, and in many cases, hidden beneath mattresses in the very bedrooms where families slept. This was not the behavior of the wealthy elite protecting offshore accounts. This was the behavior of school teachers, shopkeepers, farmers, and factory workers. Everyday people making an everyday decision that collectively produced an extraordinary economic outcome. And the numbers behind that decision are deeply revealing. The Turkish mint, the government institution responsible for producing gold coins, had quietly become one of the most active mints in the entire world. In fact, production data showed that Turkey's national mint was producing more gold coins than the United States Mint. A country of 85 million people was minting gold at a pace that outpaced a nation of 330 million. Those coins rarely left Turkey. They did not flow into international markets. They did not appear at major precious metals exchanges abroad. They moved from the mint directly into private hands, and then they disappeared from the formal system entirely, into homes, into families, into a parallel economy running silently beneath the surface of the official one. This revealed something profound about the nature of trust. When a population loses confidence in its financial institutions, it does not simply withdraw from the system in frustration. It builds something else, something self-contained, something that functions on its own rules, its own logic, and its own guarantee, which is no guarantee from any institution at all, but rather the 5,000-year track record of gold itself. Gold carries no counterparty risk. A government bond is only as strong as the government that issued it. A bank deposit is only as safe as the bank holding it. A currency note is only as valuable as the collective belief that supports it. But physical gold requires none of those conditions. It does not need a healthy government. It does not need a solvent bank. It does not need public confidence to retain its fundamental worth. Turkish citizens understood this not as a financial theory, but as a lived reality. And that understanding drove $600 billion outside the reach of every central banker, every monetary policy tool, and every government lever designed to manage economic behavior. The system had been bypassed, not broken into, not rebelled against loudly, simply walked around. With quiet discipline and collective resolve, an entire population had constructed a financial reality that the formal economy could not control, could not measure accurately, and most critically, could not reverse. The gold was in the walls. It was under the floors. It was around the necks and wrists of ordinary people living ordinary lives, and it was worth more, far more, than anything their bank statements would ever show. There is a particular kind of problem that governments fear most, not the problems they can see, not the crises they can measure, but the ones that develop quietly inside the decisions of ordinary people, until one day the standard tools of economic control simply stop working. Turkey arrived at exactly that point. Central banks operate on a principle that has guided global monetary policy for over a century. When inflation rises, raise interest rates, make borrowing expensive, make saving attractive, pull money out of circulation, cool the economy down. It is a mechanism that has worked with varying degrees of success across dozens of nations and multiple generations of economic cycles. But that mechanism has one critical assumption built into it. It assumes that the population's wealth sits inside the formal financial system. It assumes that when interest rates rise, people feel the pressure because their money is in banks, their loans are with institutions, and their financial lives are connected to the levers that central bankers control. Turkey's central bank raised rates aggressively, repeatedly. They did everything the standard playbook instructed, and yet inflation remained stubborn. Consumer spending continued. Economic behavior refused to follow the expected pattern. The reason was sitting in people's homes. When $600 billion in physical gold exists completely outside the banking system, interest rate decisions lose a significant portion of their intended impact. A family that owns gold does not feel the pressure of high borrowing costs the same way a family dependent on bank loans does. They have an alternative. A liquid, globally recognized, universally accepted alternative that requires no bank, no credit score, and no government approval to access. And then something happened that nobody in Turkey's central bank had fully anticipated. Global gold prices began climbing, not modestly, not gradually. They surged, reaching record highs that sent the value of private Turkish gold holdings upward by an estimated $300 billion in a single year. Consider what that means in human terms. Families who had quietly stored gold coins beneath their floorboards for years suddenly found their net worth had increased by amounts they had never experienced through any formal savings vehicle. People who had never considered themselves wealthy discovered that the gold passed down from their grandparents had quietly made them prosperous. Economists call this a wealth effect. When people feel wealthier, they spend more, they invest more, they take risks they previously avoided. And that is precisely what happened across Turkey, but with a unique twist that turned standard economic logic completely on its head. Instead of tightening their spending in response to high interest rates, Turkish families began liquidating small portions of their gold holdings. They used the proceeds to buy cars. They made down payments on homes. They funded new businesses. They financed major life decisions, entirely outside the credit system, entirely beyond the reach of monetary policy, and entirely on their own terms. This created a paradox of extraordinary proportions. The very asset that had protected Turkish citizens from inflation was now, through its dramatic rise in value, generating this consumer spending that kept inflation elevated. Gold had become both the shield against the fire and, unintentionally, a source of fuel feeding it. Central bankers found themselves facing a problem with no clean solution. Raising rates further would not reach the $600 billion sitting in private homes. Lowering rates would signal weakness and accelerate the very loss of confidence that had driven people toward gold in the first place. The traditional instruments of monetary control had not been destroyed. They had simply been made irrelevant for a significant portion of the population. This is the part of Turkey's story that carries the most serious implications for the global business community. Because what happened in Turkey did not happen because Turkish people are unique. It happened because human beings, across every culture and every century, respond to institutional failure in remarkably consistent ways. When the system stops protecting people, people stop using the system. And when enough people make that decision simultaneously, quietly, rationally, and with $600 billion worth of conviction, even the most sophisticated monetary policy on earth is left standing at a door that nobody inside is willing to open. Turkey did not invent this story. It inherited it. And right now, without fully realizing it, the rest of the world is beginning to read from the same page. What happened inside Turkish homes, the quiet accumulation, the deliberate withdrawal from formal financial systems, the generational return to hard assets, is not an isolated cultural response to a local crisis. It is a blueprint, one that history has produced repeatedly across different continents, different currencies, and different centuries. Zimbabwe printed money until its currency became decorative paper. Argentina watched its peso collapse so many times that its citizens developed an almost instinctive reflex toward dollar hoarding and gold. Weimar Germany produced wheelbarrows of cash that could not buy a loaf of bread. The names change, the geography changes, the currency changes, but the human response remains strikingly consistent. When fiat systems fail, tangible assets survive. And today, the signal is no longer coming only from struggling economies. It is coming from the most powerful financial institutions on Earth. Central banks across the globe, including those of China, Russia, India, Poland, and Turkey itself, have been accumulating gold at record rates. These are not retail investors making emotional decisions. These are institutional actors with teams of economists, decades of data, and no tolerance for sentiment-driven choices. When central banks buy gold at historic levels, they are not making a statement about gold. They are making a statement about everything else, about the long-term reliability of the dollar, about the sustainability of debt-based monetary systems, about what they believe the next chapter of global finance actually looks like. The $5 trillion in collective wealth generated globally through precious metals in a single recent year was not an accident of market speculation. It was a reflection of a fundamental repositioning by institutions, by governments, and by millions of ordinary people who had quietly reached the same conclusion that Turkish families reached years earlier. For the business community, for aspiring entrepreneurs, and for anyone building long-term financial resilience, Turkey's experience delivers 3 precise and non-negotiable lessons. The first lesson is this. Cash is not a store of value during sustained inflation. It is a slowly melting asset dressed in the language of security. An emergency fund in cash is necessary, but it is a tool for liquidity, not a strategy for preservation. The second lesson runs deeper. True diversification is not owning 30 different stocks across 5 different sectors. True diversification means holding assets that exist outside the debt-based financial system entirely. Physical precious metals, productive real estate, and hard commodities are not alternative investments. In an era of persistent monetary expansion, they are the foundation. The third lesson is the most strategic of all. Global demand patterns tell serious investors where confidence is actually flowing, not where official statements claim it is flowing. When central banks accumulate gold while simultaneously reassuring the public that fiat currency remains strong, the intelligent observer watches the behavior, not the language. Turkey's $600 billion under-the-pillow economy is not a curiosity. It is a case study in rational human behavior under institutional pressure. It is what people do when they stop waiting for the system to protect them and decide, quietly, firmly, and with complete conviction, to protect themselves. The system did not simply crack under the pressure of inflation. It was replaced, not by a government decree, not by a financial revolution, but by millions of individual decisions made at kitchen tables, in family conversations, and in the quiet hours of the night when people looked honestly at what their money was truly worth. Gold did not win because it was chosen. It won because everything else was no longer trusted.